この呪霊も今置いていかれ強くなったなブラザー。再びブラザーを一人にする気か東堂葵。
Before the video starts, about 98% of you guys are not subscribed. Subscribing and clicking that bell does help me out a lot in doing what I really want to do. Thank you guys so much for all your support. What's going on, guys? Rogue TCG here, bringing you another TCG deck profile for Yu-Gi-Oh! This is going to be probably my last coverage of this deck. I love this deck to bits, however I want to be moving on from it for the moment. So this is my last deck profile for Magical Musketeers. It's one of my personal favorite decks. You guys seem to love it too. So I'm gonna give it one last profile. This is gonna be for after the ban list. There is a couple changes that does affect this deck a little bit. A couple personal deck changes that I've made in philosophy, more in the extra deck and in stable cards that we're playing. But that's enough yapping. Let me just get to the deck profile. First, Magical Muskets. We are playing triple Magical Musket cast bar. When a spell or trap is activated in any musket's column, in the column that they're in, if one activates, they'll each have a respective effect, and that's their main effect. This one will add a Magical Musket card other than one activated in column from your deck to your hand. It's the best one. Next. Triple Starfire. This one, columns effect, special summons this musket from your deck in defense other than itself. Very good. It's a level 4. Keep that in mind. Dock. This one, column effect, will grab one from grave other than the one activated in column. Pretty good. Double Kid Brave. This one, pitch a Magical Musket card, draw 2. As for its column effect. Lastly, Calamity. Calamity will special one from grave in defense. That's it for the main deck muskets. We are playing as many of them as we possibly can. Now onto just kind of generic monsters that we do play for advantage. Fenrir. Fenrir is in here. It lets us actually do something going first. If we open a Fenrir, and just put it out, search another Fenrir, and then maybe normal summon a musket, and that's it. But this puts another piece of interaction on the board using minimal cards from hand. It's a 2-card, 1-card engine, so we're playing it. Also, Eldritch, the Golden Boy. A lot of times we have extra cards in our hand, spells and traps. We pitch them to him to send cards, and he's just a big boy. A lot of our cards are weenies, so we need a big boy. Now into Magical Musket spells and traps. These are pretty normal. Cross Domination, it's imperm, plus it makes their attack and defense 0, so we can use it in damage step. Despacito, this one is a Trident. But only for face-ups. Last Stand, this one is a counter trap that only counters spells and traps. Main thing, counter trap. Most people won't be able to respond to it with anything. Dancing Needle. This one is DD Crow on crack. Banish 3 from any player's grave. We're playing 2 in the main just because the graveyard decks are a lot more prevalent. A Rise Heart has been banned. Harp is now legal. Bestials are doing stuff everywhere. We want to make sure we keep those graveyards empty. And lastly, Crooked Crown. This one just specials one from hand. It's allowing you to get an extender since none of the muskets special summon themselves. So this is like their way of saying, here, if you open this one, you can now special summon a different musket. It's like, okay, cool, that didn't fix the problem. Next, Into the Vrains. If they're not going to fix the problem, we're just going to find random cards that do. Link Into the Vrains. You special summon a card from your hand, then immediately link summon a respective link monster using that card as material. And then your opponents can't respond to that link monster's effect. So this also does let us conduct just a link summon if we have a monster in hand that your opponents can't really respond to in a beneficial way. So there are some cards we can make using that, but this does make max, and this lets your opponent not able to interact with the max at all, which is really important. Triple Pot of Prosperity. We really want to be finding specific cards. This deck relies on having a musket and a spell and trap you can activate and some amount of non-engine. If you open just muskets, that's fine, but if you open only non-engine, then you're fucked. Or if you open only musket spell traps, that's the worst one. Consider like that, even the spell trap issue might even justify like Soul Servant in here. That might be something to consider. Next, double tactic, and a called by, or hand trap prevention team, or at least this one's kind of insurance. So playing those. Now onto our hand traps. We're playing 6. Our deck is very packed with a lot of things. Triple Imperm, triple Ash. That's it for the main. That is a solid 40, I believe. Now onto the extra. First in the extra, we are on triple Musketeer Max. If you do not know what this beautiful boy does, he will on summon, either special summon as many musket monsters your opponent has back row, or adds as many musket spells and traps as your opponents have monsters. Your opponent has 3 back row, you special summon 3 muskets. Your opponent has 5 monsters, you add 5 spell traps. All different names, of course, but you're playing enough. You're only able to summon, I believe, no, actually, you're able to summon 5 one time in this deck because of the one Calamity we are including. Next, Muckracker from the Underworld. We are playing Fiends. This is a card that recurs our Fiends. This lets us, if our opponent removes our better muskets, this lets us translate dog shit muskets on board and random ass cards like Link into the Vrains in our hand into muskets on board. It does Fiend lock us, but we weren't going to be link summoning after that. We just wanted the musket name on board. Nightmare Phoenix, we want removal options. We can flood the field pretty quickly, so we want to be able to link climb. However, that's not really going to be our game plan most of the time. We're more of a control deck, so a lot of this extra deck space is for more techie options. IP Masquerena and SP Little Knight. Again, we can put a lot of bodies on board, but we're almost never going to be making IP Masquerena turn 1 unless we're like open exactly like Fenrir plus Caspar plus Crooked Crown plus Doc, I think is like the best opening this deck can produce. Maybe like a Prosperity in there somewhere, but that's like the best possible hand the deck could produce. Going first, rather. 1 Unicorn. Again, we want more removal options. Speaking of removal options, access code. Keep in mind, we can make any of these monsters at a speed our opponents can't respond to with Into the Vrains. We can make SP Little Knight with Into the Vrains. As long as we have another body on board, we can make it, and your opponent can't respond to the effect of the SP. Avermax. We have a lot of, as you see, a lot of blue here. So, we're playing an Avermax. And White Woman Jump Scare. Yeah, we have a very open extra deck. We have Prosperity, so we can always get rid of this stuff. We're running a Pros board, so just 1 White Woman in here as like an insulation tool. Like if we go against Adagnister, because we don't really have an in-archetype out to just big, gigantic, fuck you assholes. So, G's are out. Where we have the capabilities of making rank 4s, so we are playing Redoer and a Dweller, because if we really don't want to be dealing with the graveyard shenanigans too much, because we only have 1 card that can reasonably interact with them in archetype, so we want to have just another thing that we can throw on top of that. This is less for tier now than it is just for generic decks. This is something that's, again, extra deck is completely up to you. I think the only mandatory cards is like the staple mandatory cards, I believe. I believe this is like basically the staple mandatory stuff. And then the 3 max. Those are the main ones that you have to be playing, I believe. And everything else is up to your discretion. So this is just my personal choices. Sky Crisis. This card I think is actually pretty mandatory in this deck. Very frequently we're just going to be making this with like a 1600 Kid Brave, which feels like you're cheating. Like it feels like you normal summoned a Kid Brave or you special summoned it off of a max. Just confirm. Yeah, no. Because your Kid Brave is the biggest naturally occurring musket in the deck. It's a 1600. So if you can make a Kid Brave on top of this, or this on top of the Kid Brave, that's a lot of value, because Kid Brave wasn't doing jack shit. Kid Brave is one of the effects you don't really want to be activating because you want your musket cards in hand, not in grave. Oh, last card, Zeus. We're running enough, like, you can definitely justify just only playing Typhon and cutting the other 3 XEs, but again, I feel like the extra deck is flexible and I want to spec into the XEs portion in like the cheaty aspect, because we're also running tactics for Zeus. We can steal an XEs like Pearly or something. So there's a lot of different moving aspects to this deck. But now onto the side. Let's keep things quick. Banlist change, just double Pank. We're running Pank for going first in the main, and we're running Pank for going second in the side. But they're both good going second. D-Shifter. Cringe. Yeah, we gotta play D-Shifter. This deck can play under D-Shifter pretty aight, which is enough. It's enough to just play alright under D-Shifter because it's so crippling against decks that can't out it, that, like, this deck, as long as you, like, normal summon one musket and have, like, one piece of interaction in hand, if your opponent's under Shifter, there's still not much they can do, especially if they make you go first. Like, it's brutal. Next, double Phantasme. If we're going to be going second, we want to be drawing cards and finding the right portions of our decks, especially if our opponents are playing a Link deck. We can side this in exchange for some other cards, like maybe Tactics or something. Next, double Econ. This lets us, if our opponents have a monster and they try and negate one of our muskets, like the activated effect on board, we can tribute the muskets to steal a monster and prevent it from being negated if it's like an imperm or something. This is just a good card generally too. It lets us tribute stuff we take with Tactics. Lastly, our last multiple in here is going to be Dimensional Barrier. I don't like playing it, but we don't really have too much to good for when we go first, so probably when we go first it's going to be setting in like Enemy Controller, Dimensional Barrier, and like Shifter. Like, it's not nice, but the deck doesn't really have anything else to do, to be honest. Now onto one-ofs in the extra, side deck. Tactics, Dark Ruler, Duster, and the Last Dancing Needle. Just random cards that we can put in and out, because this deck is very nice, because if you know your opponent is playing, for example, let's say Orchestra or Graveyard heavy deck, right? Instead of leaving 2 Dancing Needles and 3 Last Stands in the deck, cut a Last Stand, put in the other Dancing Needle, because if they're playing Orchestra, they're not really relying too much on their spells and traps, they're relying on their graveyard. So the triple Dancing Needle just really exemplifies that. And also with Last Stand, a lot of our spells and traps, as long as we play like our cards in the correct order and we play around our own like floodgates, we can always make sure we're always going to be able to get one of these back and have one like functionally in hand at any point in the game. Or for example, if your opponent's playing like a deck that has nothing to do with the graveyard, like let's say I wouldn't want to like say Sword Soul or something, I don't know, like I feel like every deck has to do with the graveyard, so running 2 of the Dancing Needle in the main, that's why I'm doing it, just because you just have enough of this interaction. This deck is like, it has enough little pings of interaction where if you get your opponent like and they have a slow start, just your little mosquito bites of interaction ends up like killing them because of frustration, not necessarily because you won, which is what I found, which is also a little bit disappointing with the deck. I really love it, but with the social aspect of Musket, a lot of it is just saying no to your opponent, which is the thing that I hate the most in Magic the Gathering, the card game. That's what I hate. I hate getting countered, and I hate saying no. I want people to do their cool things. So, at least for the time being, I'm not going to like unsleeve it or anything. I'm just going to try and focus on different decks. I hope y'all understand, but I appreciate y'all watching if you still are. If you want to see me check out another deck, or you want to tell me what deck like combination you want to see, I do have a series where I look at y'all's deck ideas and I try and put my own twist on it. So please leave a comment if you wanted to do that, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye. Oh, and also, thanks for 100 subs. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to keep posting content. I'm going to keep, hopefully keeping y'all entertained and educated, even though I'm barely educated. See ya.